Hello, my name is Chris Woodpan. I'm the owner of Ink & Film Studios, and I am working with Hero Time to make a bunch of videos to help you get your products ready for print. So in this episode, we're going to be talking about die lines. What is a die line? A die line specifically is the path in which a cut will be made, and that can be for a card, that can be for punch board, or anything like that. So it's very important to have your die lines set up correctly so that the things get cut the way you need them, and also so that you understand where the bleed margins may need to be in your specific item. So there are two ways to have a die line. Number one is maybe you get a template and you can download them from our website, and that will help you understand where cards are cut, for instance. The other one may be where you have to make a die line yourself because you're designing a punch board for a specific game or publication that you're putting out. So let's work with the latter and let's see exactly what that looks like. So when we hop in Illustrator, this is a file that I'm working on currently that is for tiles for a train game. So it's very important that things are appropriately sized, spaced, so that they line up when they're placed on the board next to each other. And one of the ways I ensure that A, I'm working correctly, and B, that it's going to get cut correctly is through the use of die lines. As a graphic designer, die lines are super important because they tell me where the target for the die, that is to say the punch that's going to make the hole or cut out the item I'm trying to make, and it's going to determine where that goes. The only way to really do that is within Illustrator. It needs to be a path, okay? It can't be a graphical line because that is not how the die process works. You need to have a path. So if you look here, you can see these magenta lines are actually individual paths, and they make up each cut that I am expecting to have made for this individual item. And then the leftover is the margin. That's going to be the bleed. That's giving me a little insurance that if the die wiggles or moves, that it's still going to have a nice edge-to-edge color on the entire tile, and it's not going to stop or expose some white. So remember, this is what we call full bleed, which means it goes past the die cut and it's going to have plenty of room for runoff if that die moves. So in the die line layer, what I have is all the hexagons in a single non-filled path. You can see up here in appearance, it's just a one-point path with no fill. And that's creating all of these outlines that are going to be making up the die line down the road. To make my life easy, I have multiple pages of these that you can see here, and they're all going to use the same die line. So I copy and paste them through all 6 pages that I'll be working on. This is a way to save costs because now we don't have to pay to set up 2 die lines, even though it might be a little bit more and the last page might have some extras on it. I'd rather have extras than have to pay to set up a special die just for 1 page. So a couple super important things about die lines. Number one is, if you can, try and consolidate and have as few die lines as possible, especially if you're doing custom punch boards and things like that. I'm sure you've encountered it in some games where you don't understand, why is this thing blank and white? This may help you understand what the publisher was thinking at the time. It's a lot cheaper sometimes to even punch an extra board to get the extra pieces than it would be to set up a whole extra die just for that one project. Make sure your die line is a path in Illustrator. I can't stress this enough. You could use a path in Photoshop as well. That's completely acceptable and doable, and if you know how to do that, great. But do not think that a graphic drawn line is a die line. It is not. So make sure it's a path. You should be able to ask your artist for these things so that they understand, and give them the amount of bleeds and things that you may need on the other side of this project so that you don't have to come back and ask for it. Die lines typically should be a non-filled 1-point line. so that way everybody knows exactly what they are, and put them on a layer and label them so that when you ship that product, they know exactly what it is. So there you have it. That's die lines in a nutshell. Each case is going to be unique, and if you're cutting out like standees that might be some really cool awkward shapes, they're going to be very different. But making sure that you communicate on a separate layer and keeping them organized is going to make your life so much easier when it comes time to actually getting the die lines cut the way you envision them to be. Join us next time. We're going to talk about how to set up print plates and to make sure that your things are set up for success, especially when it comes to printing the backs of cards with deep, rich, saturated colors. So we'll see you on the next one. Thanks for watching.